Hi Murrumu, thank you very much for joining us for our Lunch and Learn session today with the QUT community. Really appreciate your time and it's great that we're able to speak to you whilst you're elsewhere and you can share your experiences, insights and knowledge with us. So before we get going, the framework is pretty simple. It's about 10 minutes hearing from you with an introduction of who is Murrumu and the background to the conversation that we're having here. And then it's 50 minutes or so of Q&A from the participants. And I'd just ask anybody, if you've got a question, feel free to post the question in the chat. And then I'll either cue your question if you'd like to ask it, or otherwise ask the question for you. But feel free to drop the questions as we're going along. So we have this mission of providing an entrepreneurial experience, connection and inspiration to the QUT community. You have a bigger mission still, much more broadly for all of Australia. And so in the context of that and who is Murrumu, over to you.
Well, Graham, thanks very much. And thank you everyone for joining me. And contributing your time. It's a great honour to meeting in a space like this. I've done a few Zooms now, but mainly with my family, given the situation around the world at the moment. So your question was, who is Murrumu and what we're doing? I would return the question and ask everyone to probably think about who they are, who do they think they are, and who they are. And that's where this, I would come from a philosophical or a spiritual level. And that's what this is all about at the end of the day. Your journey on this earth is to, where will you begin and where will you end, and what kind of things are you going to experience or accomplish along the way. And I think that's what, if you've joined the meeting today because you're studying business or law or whatnot, you're looking in the right direction in terms of, from a Yidindji government point of view, this is quite new. And we're getting inquiries from around the world from other different tribal societies on how to go about what we're doing. Without going into it too much, basically the Yidindji nation is a rainforest-based society in what Australians would describe as the Cairns area or far north Queensland. We call this place the city of Gimoy. It's the official capital city of the Yidindji territory. And I'm just a simple man that holds a personality that's a Yidindji one. So rather than using an Australian piece of paper, I now use a Yidindji piece of paper, which is identified with our coat of arms. You can see that there. This is a letter that I've written to Prince Harry, and we've just sent that off today. So we do a number of things like that. We would describe the Sovereign Yidindji Government as a not-for-profit organisation that is here for the benefit of everyone who lives on the Yidindji territory. So we've set this up with the intention of protecting the Commonwealth of Australia. And so that's where we're at the moment. Now, you know, you see these interviews with people on the Conan O'Brien show and Jimmy Fallon and stuff. It might be Al Pacino, for example, and he'll talk about a new movie that he's in, but then the interviewer may go in, so what was it like working with so-and-so on the movie a few years ago, or has it changed? I'm here to talk about the new movie, which is the Yidindji Nation, because that's the one I'm acting in at the moment. So all the other movies that I've done in the past, yeah, we can talk a little bit about that, but let's focus on the Yidindji for today. I'm happy to answer, or to the best of my ability, any question. And I think, I hope you find it interesting. But from a legal point of view or an entrepreneurial point of view, because I think I'll also dabble into maybe promoting a bit of trust law or trusteeships and things as an entrepreneur that you might want to investigate in terms of how to run your operate your business of life. So I'll leave it there. I've got a background in Graham knows he's probably got the dirt on me. I hope there's no untoward pictures that he's going to put up there, but well, let's see how we go. And I look forward to your questions. And yeah, you know, let's have a go.
I don't have any baby photos to put up, and no, I don't have any dirt on you. I could say it's been a pleasure to know you for the time that we've known each other over what is now something like 20 plus years. My question in the entrepreneurial sense, which really opens up to everything that you're doing. We've spoken before about Indigenous entrepreneurship, and your response is everything I do is entrepreneurial. It's all about entrepreneurship. And so my interest has always been with how active you have been in so many domains, whether it is connecting people in business, which is a part of what we do, but we're all about providing opportunity and value creation. And that's where I think so much of what you've done has been so very entrepreneurial. It's been innovative, you've led people, you've formed communities, that you have been an inspiration to so many. How would you describe your entrepreneurial self, whether it relates to your political aspects of your life, whether it's the journalistic aspects of your life, business aspects of your life, or community? How's the entrepreneurial you?
Well, you know, there's a number of levels we could talk about that. From a spiritual sense, you know, I've been, this is my journey, and this is my calling. So, you know, I'm you could describe someone as a Christian or someone who has a faith in the Creator. And so that's what, you know, I remind myself every day about that. And we go about business that way. First of all, that's what I teach my son, is you take care of your spiritual business first, and that you talk to the Creator in the morning and last thing at night before you go to sleep and all that kind of stuff. And it's a great handbook on how to do business. So, you know, don't steal, do this, don't do that. And if you do that, if you love your neighbour as yourself, even your enemy, that will make good business from a diplomatic point of view. Now, in foreign affairs, which is what my portfolio is with the SYG, the government here. So it's about not only creating bridges, but not burning bridges as such. That's a very important part of entrepreneurial endeavour. And I think really being not afraid to make mistakes, but also not bending too much what you believe in to gain the world. There's a saying in the Holy Scriptures is about what good is it if a man, you know, gets everything in the world only to sell his soul. So, you know, yes, do good business, but there's, you know, things come at a cost. You know, we operate here on the Yidindji territory with no money. So this is what I'm saying about trust law is very important if you want to have a look at that. For example, because the Constitution, when it was created in Australia in 1901, it excluded Aboriginal people from the Yidindji nation. So at that time, that what you call the intention was a white Australia. And that's still today, it hasn't changed. That's why they talk about constitutional recognition and all these things, right? So I said, okay, fair enough. And once I learned that, I said, okay, I'm not supposed to be inside of Australia, but there's an opportunity here to go back to the tribal society and to create a government that is uniquely reflective of the tribal society. So we said, okay, let's start the Yidindji government. And that started to take place. Now, there's an opportunity here. We saw, okay, well, fair enough. We don't want to destroy the Commonwealth of Australia. We want to protect, for example, everyone here, I'd assume, has got some ID, maybe a bank account, a license, perhaps a passport, Medicare. The Yidindji nation has gone to Prime Minister and Cabinet and said, look, we want to look after Australia and all those instruments that have come from the Constitution, and we want to do it at no cost. We want to do it for free. So when people said, or heard that rather, they were like crazy. They go, you're crazy. Why why don't you hit them for billions and billions of dollars in compensation? And there's a famous French philosopher by the name of Rochefoucauld. I think he's 1400s, 1600s, 1700s, I can't remember, to be honest, but he says something like this: "Les sovereign ability consiste bien connaître la prix des choses," which in that French at that time means the true sovereign ability is to know the value of things. What is the value of money? As I say, my son, it's a piece of paper. Okay, money is worth something, but at the end of the day, it's actually worth pieces of paper. They're just instruments, and it's crazy that people fight over this stuff. So that's my a little bit of a suggestion there, is have a look at how money is created, where it comes from, and what is it really worth. So that's where we said, okay, well, it's not about the money, but it is about doing business where you exchange things, and that's what we're interested in.
We've only briefly spoken about business with the Yidindji nation, and so you've mentioned to me that you'd like to get more people involved and registered with yourselves as a business interest, and I'm interested in what that would look like in the context that Queensland and QUT, MIT, and Advanced Queensland as a representative organisation of the Queensland government has been running a program called MIT REAP, Regional Enterprise Acceleration Program. That runs in parallel to the efforts to try and connect the different regions within Queensland. And that's one of those greatest challenges that they would cite, that there isn't enough connection with the regions. And your discussion offers exactly that, a connection with a region in quite a unique way. How do you suggest people connect with yourselves and in the context of business, and what type of business do you invite? What would it look like?
Well, we've had a number of entities and corporations, let's say, write to our government, and these are some of the biggest brands or biggest names in the Commonwealth. And you know, I won't mention them because that's there's no need to, and plus to protect the privacy and all that kind of stuff. But look, the most important thing is that the Australian Constitution and all the businesses that have come from that, been created from that, including the university, the one that you're at, they don't have permission to be here yet. So when just a quick lesson, when Cook came here, he came here as an officer. He was looking for other officers and like something that would resemble some sort of government office. So there was nothing here at that time in the way that he could recognise that. So what, in a nutshell, is your Australian piece of paper. Let's pretend that's it. This is a stamp. Hey, welcome to the Yidindji territory. Have a nice day. Go do your business. But as long as you're upholding the state of Queensland laws and the Commonwealth Australian laws, you're welcome to do business on our territory. People ask us how much it's going to cost, and we say nothing. So it's simple as that, actually, Graham. The issue that we're looking at is at a higher level, which is between the Administrator of the Commonwealth and the Prime Minister, nation-to-nation treaty. So that's going to look after all the businesses that you may have or are looking to create. But remember that there are also opportunities to register a Yidindji trade or a business up here that's subject to the Yidindji laws. And that may have different obligations and rights attached to it than an Australian one. For example, there may be differences in tax or things like that. But as we remind everyone, which is why people write to us, that if you are an Australian business, then you are subject to the tax laws of the Commonwealth of Australia or one of its juridical persons, in this case, let's say Queensland, because you're talking from a university level, or someone may have a salon or a shop of some sort. So we get a few crazies who want to register businesses and get out of paying taxes. We said, no, we're here to protect the Commonwealth of Australia. This isn't a free ride. So, yeah, it's that simple, actually. It's more about the recognition and working towards an in good faith arrangement where, for example, Scott Morrison came here probably about a year and a half ago, thereabouts, and he came here and he received a welcome from our Chief Minister, and he was given a Yidindji visa because his piece of paper wasn't allowed here yet because there's no agreement. There's no treaty yet, right? So we're looking after Scott, we're looking after, and Anastasia was here, and all the premiers and chief ministers of all the Australian states and territories are here also, and they all received that. So these are the things that probably won't make the news, but that's what we're looking after. And we want to look after all the businesses, especially now, I think, with the COVID thing now, I think the issue of debt is going to strike at home pretty soon. Later on the year, I think it's you look at I think today there's some sort of recession announced in the UK or Britain. So the Yidindji are here to protect Australia with its law and with its resources, and I think that's what it's sort of when you look at it. There's that entrepreneurial spirit from our point of view to offer that as a gift to the Commonwealth of Australia, whether it be the university or some people here might have a business that they're interested in operating up from our territory in the future. Who knows?
And you do get significant engagement. So I've seen a good number of people engage with you as well as the government. And so what's the future? What's the prognosis for uptake and change, particularly you're a change maker, you clearly are. So as a change maker, and I imagine you're a patient man, but what's the prognosis for that change happening?
Well, it's happening, the very narrative's changing right before our eyes. So we would, we're not described as Australians, for example, we're not Indigenous Australians. So I'll give you a little pan of our office here. There's our flag, and there's my young fellow over there. He's getting ready for his YouTube channeling. He does a language. He's looking at doing an Aboriginal language program on YouTube to help students around the world or whatever they want to do. So he's got a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit there. But we wouldn't consider ourselves as Australians because we're not subject to the Commonwealth of Australia and its constitution. So, but we would say Aboriginal or Indigenous Australians are. I'm looking at them. I'm talking to them because their piece of paper was created inside of an Australian jurisdiction. So we're very patient, but that narrative's changing. There was an ABC article, I think this week or last, that featured a story on micronations, and they featured the Yidindji stamp on there and talked about a certain number of things. The Yidindji nation is not a micronation as such. We are an original nation that the Australian courts have set a pre-1770 society. I think the Federal Court of Australia says that the Yidindji were here before Cook, and they're still here today. So that's basically, this is the official part now, right? So what was missing was an official Yidindji piece of paper to talk to the Australian piece of paper. That's where treaties are done in a legal sense, I guess.
Vibbor's got a question citing the very interesting take on money that you have. So Vibbor, your question?
Yep. Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry. So I was wondering, I mean, what you talked about money and how the concept of money and the way you the money in terms of the time and wealth which you create by exchanging money, and also in trade and business and resources, particularly with the land, not people and everything, is how do we manage or save the resources, not exploit and make money out of those resources. So I want to know, like, in your opinion, the take on wealth creation, then earning money out of the resources which you have access to.
Well, thank you very much for that question. Earlier I mentioned trust law, and I'll dabble into a little bit of what a trusteeship. I'm not a lawyer by any means, but let's say, Viboy, you had a piece of land, and that land was producing cattle, and you sort of went on holidays for a while, and when you came back, I had moved on there and started making business out of it without your permission. There's a number of things you could do. You could get rid of these people on your territory, or the ones that are making business off your territory illegally, or you can come to some sort of negotiation and have a look and look at it. Now, we see every man and woman, whether they're black or white or wherever they're from, on the Yidindji territory as a Yidindji beneficiary. So we would say this to the Commonwealth of Australia: all the stuff that's on our territory is our property. But you know what? How about we have some sort of trusteeship? I will trust you. The Yidindji nation will trust you with all this stuff, subject to the terms and conditions of this agreement. Now, that might be, you know, that we set up businesses that integrate with the international community, for example, through banking, schools, all that kind of stuff. Or we might say to the Commonwealth of Australia, look, we're going to give you some of our wealth from our line of credit to pay for a hospital for everyone that is currently on the Yidindji territory. So that might be a visitor from France who's injured themselves on the reef. Our hospital that we would back would make that a very, very attractive hospital in terms of that line of wealth, and additional wealth could secure and be very, very competitive in the marketplace for the best heart surgeons, or the best equipment from around the world, the best emergency response for tsunamis next door, or in the region of the South Pacific or Southeast Asia or wherever. So this is where we're thinking about entrepreneurial projection. How can the Yidindji wealth empower the Commonwealth and everyone on our territory to actually continue this underwriting? Because in Mabo 2, if you follow that, it says that the dispossession of Aboriginal people's land underwrite the Commonwealth. So what they're saying there in a nutshell is that Yidindji is the underwriter. So as part of the trusteeship to the Commonwealth, we would say, look, you guys look after, we'll give you the administrative rights of our territory. You look after it. Here's the trust. We trust you with these things. You go forth and do it. Now, there's no real money there as such. It's more of an instruction, and there would be KPIs attached to that. But that hasn't happened yet. And this is why we're saying, you know, a lot of people that I talk with say, well, you can't trust Australia. I said, well, had they been offered a trust in a true correct capacity? That's what I'm saying. If you've got a product or something that's quite big for you as a sole trader or whatever to operate, then why wouldn't you think about or consider creating a trust that would look after it, and you'd be the beneficiary of that trust? So that's where we're looking at that quite seriously. And 3 years to the day tomorrow is when we offered at Parliament House in Canberra to the Commonwealth the Yidindji roadmap to a treaty. And that's what we're saying. We want to do this at no cost to the Commonwealth. We don't want any Australian money. But we want to contribute to the Commonwealth of Australia, the longevity, its security, and also at the same time, settle the past. So everyone here in this room can just go out and do stuff without, feeling awkward about, oh, should we do this welcome to country? Should I acknowledge this? No. It's done and dusted with. You're welcome to the Yidindji territory. Have a nice day. Go do your best, and take care and govern yourself accordingly. I think that's sensible business. It's quite simple, and there's no need to get too complex about it. I think, or sophisticated. It's just quite a simple thing. You look after it. Go make your money from it. But when we need something, you just supply that.
Emma Kate's got a question that would go to some of the detail of how a business itself at that level or at an individual level, one engages with the concept. So she asks, could their business, which is a community business, enter into a treaty with traditional owners? And so how would they do that, and what would it look like?
Well, that's an excellent question. What you could do, and I can only speak for the Yidindji territory, if you had a community owned and operated in the Australian realm or the Queensland realm, here in Cairns, Gimoy, then what we would do is, hey, look, that's really good. We want to support you doing that. You have consent for your business to be on the Yidindji territory. You have a certificate of registration of your business to be on the Yidindji territory. And as long as you, like I said, uphold the laws or of Queensland and the corporate acts and all that kind of stuff of the Commonwealth, then that's fine. Let's keep going, because that's part of this process, right? And it means that there's some people out there who think they've got this magic wand to kick people back to England or wherever they're coming from. And I think it just comes out of frustration, because maybe they haven't looked at this particular option that we're looking at. And, we can understand people getting upset because of what's happened in the past, and we want to help settle that. And we're not downplaying that, but I think that it makes sense to, what's the point of me saying, oh, we don't want Australians here, and, or we don't want that business here, when one of you guys, let's say, were happening to be up here and had a business, saved my son on the side of the street. This is about value adding to the territory, and the Yidindji nation wants to give the access to the resources and to the wealth to the Commonwealth through an exclusive arrangement to make it better and safer for people living on the territory, whether they are using an Australian citizenship personality or a Yidindji one. So I think that's a really good thing. Find out who your traditional owners are, and in good faith, say, look, can we have some sort of form of recognition? Can we help you do that? And I think that's a very smart thing to do.
So I'd like to come back to that question, because I'm curious about the breadth of traditional owners and how we might engage with all, and the prognosis for what you do translating to all. But Rory's got a question that goes back to the education and engagement with yourselves, and also really like the idea that your son is about to go and via YouTube or some other medium. Hello.
That's Thoyo. Hello.
Hello. Bring Indigenous language to a greater set of people by virtue of one of those meetings is just a great idea. So Rory, your question about engagement and education?
Thanks, Graham, and hi, Murrumu. Thank you for taking the time today. I'm a lecturer in creative industries here at QUT. I work a little bit in the entrepreneurship space, but part of the other work I do is around projects and finding ways that students can connect with industry and with broader Australia. And listening to you speak today, it kind of strikes me that there is a real opportunity potentially for students, perhaps within the framework of a project, something that has a beginning, a middle and end, and a clear learning outcome, to come and visit potentially from the Yidindji territory, and then maybe think about how that formal application and access is negotiated. I think some of what you've talked about today may be challenging to some of the students that are enrolled here at QUT, and I think that challenge is a very good thing for them to grapple with. Andrew Bowe, the lawyer who's worked with the Palm Island community, was on Radio National yesterday talking about settler Australia's need to sit down with Indigenous Australia and break bread and to speak more and to share stories, and how difficult sometimes that is to do. And part of that is about physical access and people being in the same room. So listening, to bring it back to the education piece, I'm curious what engagement you might have had with formal education, with schools, with universities, what that might have looked like to date for you, and what you may want to do with that into the future. That's my question.
Well, thank you. That's an excellent question, because it just, we do have an education minister, Kowal is his name, and we are currently looking at homeschool delivery via Zoom or some sort of platform similar to this for that particular purpose of education. The Yidindji University will be up and running very soon. It will also take an online form, because this is a realistic approach for us, because this is while this is our office, we are still building the nation. And you know, we would see in the future agreements. Let's say you got your masters in business and whatnot from QUT, and you came up here and said, look, you know, we wanted to do some business up here. No worries. Our university also, on that registered prior learning concept, could also consider producing and granting a similar educational document. But what would make that easier is this treaty between Yidindji and the Commonwealth of Australia, because that would mean that our institutions, our pieces of paper would be the same as an ACT license being recognised by Queensland Roads. All that stuff works, right? So if you register with ASIC, you can have a business in Brisbane or Tasmania, because it's Securities and Investment Commission, which is the sort of you know, that part of that business world. So we would see this as the computer says yes. And all our institutions, all our governments, this is finally making it now. And it's actually quite exciting because it's growing. So you imagine yourself, if you've got an entrepreneurial heart, you can probably see the value and the potential of this. For example, we could create laws that would instruct the Commonwealth of Australia to promote the hemp industry for biofuels, for substitutes for plastics or concrete, so many things, or for health reasons even. So you can take, you know, I don't have that knowledge, but people like yourselves and the younger generation have these ideas, and to a certain extent they're limited. But what the Yidindji nation would do is totally blow that open by having innovation centres and, you know, free. I would like to see free, massive 3D digital printers where people could take their ideas and go in there and create a concept and use these facilities on our territory for that creative nation to, you know, you guys coming through university now, we're thinking years in advance. You may not have a job because a robot might have it. You know, this is the robotics industry. There has to be something that we can look forward to that a robot can't do, and we have to use robots, yes, but, you know, solidify our position in a global space now where we're not reliant. This is what sovereignty is all about. We can grow our own food. We can do all these things. That's what we're here for, but we're also here to instruct the Commonwealth on how to do that. It can't do it for us. But if you come to us with an idea, then the Yidindji government would say, yes, that's an excellent idea. Let's have a look at it. let's push this 100% and get behind it, or let's have a pilot project of some sort to see where we can take this. This is what, we can create laws for a 3-day weekend. We can create laws that a woman would get paid the same as a man for that particular job if they're sweating the same sweat. So this is what I'm saying. It's very difficult in Australia to do those things. Here, we've got an open slate to create not only something beautiful for the future, but something that, if Australians wanted to have a Yidindji job and they would be Australian for 5 days a week and 2 days a week they were for Yidindji, then that's the treaty would enable that. You could become a diplomat for our government. 3 days a week and then 4 days a week, your mum and dad in Australia or whatever you want to do. So some people here might have an Italian passport, an Australian one, or some other nation. That's what you can gain from the tribal society where you're living right now. This is the potential. It makes smart business for me. It's sensible business.
Murrumu, I'm curious about how you scale this in future. There would be so many areas of Australia that would benefit or be relevant to what you're seeking to do. So how do you scale it into other territories and see that this is something that has a broader uptake for all of Australia rather than a smaller territory?
Well, as I said before, Graham, is the Yidindji territory is nearly 3 times the size of Hong Kong. It's a small space, but we can only speak for this area. However, what we do is, and part of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, is to let the world know what we're up to. So we let Australians know, we let other, we have good relationships. The German government representatives are just across the road from us, just here, the consulate, and there's another few nations here around. They can see what we're doing. So we get support from all the UN member states, because if we're looking after Australia, and Australia is a founding member of the UN, then we're looking after the UN system, and we're looking after the Commonwealth. So we want to protect the Queen of Australia. We want to protect Mr. Graham Fellows. We wanted to protect Ms. Kathy McCabe, and all these names and personalities here, the pieces of paper that you are carrying. That business is important for us because you might be the next big thing, right? In terms of getting rid of toxins in rivers or whatever it may be, whatever your business is. So that's why we see the value in this. Now, I forgot your question there because I went off in a tangent there, brother. Sorry about that. How do we take it to the other nations, you're saying?
Yeah, how do you take it to the other nations? How do you scale it? How do you engage others in the same mission?
Well, we can only do so much. So we'd love to, I've tried to clone myself. That's the result of that, but it's a bit slow. It'd be good if we could just add water and it'd be a few of us around. But, this is where people like yourselves, we would see the value in your energy, your entrepreneurial desire, and we would look very favourably if it's for the benefit not just yourself, but for the society. And that's what we are really looking at. There's a thing in universities, they sort of don't look at the spiritual side of things. They sort of look at philosophical and what's going to work and scientific approaches to things. I don't have any adverse or natures to that. However, there's a really thing that makes you feel good that you can't really qualify or quantify, and that is about job satisfaction or going home to a family that you can provide for, or things like that. That's what we value. So when we talk to different nations, we sell it at a not-for-profit level. So we let people know, if you're going down this track of sovereignty and setting up your government to make money, probably best to stay inside the Commonwealth of Australia. Become a billionaire there, However, if you want to look after other people, then there's certain things that happen that we found that are going to attract people from all over the world. And that's what has happened in our experience. So yeah, if you do things, like I said, it's pretty simple. When you go with an attitude of love and looking after one another, even people that may not like you, still give them the time. And hey, look, I don't let them know. I don't know what the issue is, but we can try and sort it out. But if you're happy not to talk about that, then I'm happy with that too. But just let you know that the bridge is always open.
Next question comes from Luke. Luke.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Mate, I'm still just a little confused because it just sounds to me that you're talking about it as if you're running it as landowners, but I'm just confused how it's like a sovereignty opposed to like outside of the Australian government. Like, how's it operate? Has it retained any of its own wealth? And like, how's the economy? Like, does it have its own economy, or is this something you're moving towards? I'm not sure if I'm making any sense.
You're making 100% sense, and it's quite a common thing that people don't get it. The easiest way to say this is that the same way that France is different to Germany, Liechtenstein, they all have their own parliaments, their economies, their wealth, their governance structures. All that was here with the Yidindji nation and other tribes before the British were here, before Australia was here, and it's still here today, right? This is the thing now. Where is Australia's home? Because it doesn't really have one. And this is supply and demand, right? The Yidindji nation has the resources and the wealth. The Commonwealth of Australia has the corporate knowledge. Okay, and that's what we're marrying here. I don't know if you can see these guys, but these are our official government stamps. That's our $5 one. Can you recognise that image? Okay, so that's Scott Morrison. This one is Ken Wyatt. He's the Minister for Indigenous Australians. Okay. And this one is Nigel Scullion, who was the former Minister for Indigenous Affairs before Ken. Everyone asks us, why did you put those guys on your stamps? Very simple matter is that they agreed to uphold the Yidindji law. And that series is part of an ongoing series called The Great Australians. Now, we're getting emails from Europe and recently, last night, asking to buy these. We don't sell them, okay? So what we're saying is all those institutions that I've mentioned there, the Yidindji government and the Yidindji nation have the ability to express that. And so Australia has stamps. Now Yidindji has stamps. Now, if Australia says that Yidindji own the land, then where's Australia's land? If they say, when the Prime Minister comes here, he says, I want to thank the traditional owners. If we're the owners, what does the Commonwealth of Australia own? But this is just simple logic, right? So we just said, look, we know you're here, you don't have a treaty, but we want to give you one for free. We want to look after our territory, but we would actually like you to represent us at the international level, so at the UN and all that kind of stuff. So that's where it comes back to. It's like, you imagine someone stolen your car, and like I said, I tried to paint this picture a little bit before with the property, but the car's been stolen. You go, hey mate, what's going on? Why did you steal my car? Oh, whatever excuse. It's like, well, look, just don't do it again. How about I let you keep using the car, you make your business from it, you do your Uber, your courier service or whatever you do with it, but on a Monday, can you pick me up to the shops and take me back? You get to use the car, I trust you with it, but when I need to benefit from it, then I'll give you a buzz. Now, all the money in the world can't pay for what's happened here on the Yidindji territory, the genocide, the stolen wealth, call it what you want. We're just happy, we're saying, look, you can't afford it. We just strike it off and start from scratch, make sure it doesn't happen again. That approach is why we're writing to Prince Harry, saying, hey, look, because when Charles and Camilla came, they got their visas as well. So it sounds like it's sort of funny in a way, but it's very real because it's the paper that makes it real for people who believe in the paper. So it's all official. Now, I sort of lose track of your question again, but have I answered part of it or not?
Yeah, to an extent. I guess what I'm asking, like, is there any sort of taxation system? Like, how do you
run a
keep
charity,
the
do you
wealth
pay tax?
accumulated on that land, like, to the people who are on that land? Like who pays the government salary, for instance? Like, is there any sort of sovereign economy, or is it still very much reliant on the Australian economy and the Australian government designating certain funds to that land?
Okay, so I don't have an Australian bank account. Neither does my son or any Yidindji member of the society doesn't have an Australian bank account. So we would say this we would ask this as a question then. If I can, without a treaty, this is Yidindji property, 100%. So we didn't say that. The Federal Court of Australia said that. The Federal Court of Australia, in its determination, said, nearly verbatim, the Yidindji owned the land pursuant to their law. So the court says that the Yidindji own it according to their law. But the Yidindji do not own the land if they're Yidindji Australians or operating in that Australian realm, because Australia can't own what Yidindji has. So that's why everything we've done is based on all the evidence from the Australian court systems, from what prime ministers have said. And we're just saying, hey, look, thanks for telling the truth. Now we're back and we're open for business. Come and negotiate, or sit down and we'll negotiate this treaty. And it's not going to cost you any money. But we can underwrite the Commonwealth. We're the insurer, we're the bank. You see what I'm saying?
Emily's got a question for you to answer. With only 12 minutes to go, we won't have much more time. And so the question from Emily is, what platforms do you use to communicate proposals, wins and losses? And how do you interact with supportive interested parties and gain that grassroots support? Do you support applications to government with petitions signed by Australians, Yidindji locals, for example? What platforms do you use?
I'll give you a good example. An Australian group came to us and said, look, that's what I'm saying, this might prick your ears up a bit. We want to have, to do some charitable things. Do we pay tax on stuff up here at Yidindji? There is no tax in Yidindji, right? Because if you're not for profit, and if it's a charity, let's say, you don't pay tax, or you're exempt from taxes. So by the very definition of our government is here to serve, and the people, serve the people. And so you could say, you could probably describe us as volunteers, okay? So there's no bank accounts, there's no anything like that. But we're volunteering to connect these two worlds together. Now, one of these Australian entities came to us and said, look, we want to support what you're doing. We really love what you're doing, and we want to support it. And anyway, they registered a business up here, and they wanted to apply for DGR status. Do people know what that is? I'm sure you guys know that. Deductible gift recipient status. And we made that very clear on our communications to the Commonwealth that this particular entity had DGR status on the Yidindji territory and to operate. Now, I don't know how long that process goes for, but literally 6 weeks after they put that in, it was granted. So that could be chance or luck or whatever you want to call it. I really don't know because I'm not familiar with that government process inside the Commonwealth of Australia. But for us, it's quite simple. You come here today, it's 5 minutes. I type it up. Yep, no worries. Put a copy in the file, give you your copy, you take it. Now, if you said, oh, look, Murrumu, that would be great if you could actually write to Australia to say that I've got this from you guys to operate on your... Yeah, no worries. Maybe it would support your adventure. Maybe it doesn't. But we communicate through post. Everything's done through mail. We always send an electronic copy, but it has to go through post because it's official. That's legal tender. That's Yidindji government money right there. Remember, neither the Australian courts or the Australian parliaments created what you're looking at right now. This is what sovereignty is all about. The ability to create wealth, government, officers, police. This is the only identification I have. It's a badge, and it's a ministerial badge. So all our government ministers have a ministerial badge. A Yidindji citizen would get an identification card to identify that their person is a Yidindji national. That's not subject to the Commonwealth of Australian laws. We don't have to wear this stuff if we don't want to. But we do it because we want to say to Australians, hey, look, we're here to help you out, you know. So yeah, we use the postal service, and I would strongly encourage everyone here who does business to use the post for all your business. Yes, send an electronic copy, email, but always use letters and seals and signs and stamps and things like that. Once you get to know a little bit about that, you'll find that there's a real art to it that they don't really teach much about at schools, which is why I teach my son all about this at home, and while we develop the school system.
Speaking of the school system, now, what type of school system do you develop within the Yidindji nation?
You heard of pay as you go?
Indeed.
We sort of make it up as you go. So he'll come to me and say, look, Dad, I want to learn about this. Okay, let's get down and we'll go for it. But, you know, I take him to the courtrooms. I show him the courts. I say, this is what we do here and this is what happens here. We go and we look at, I take him to, to certain trips. Well, went to the Russian embassy and a few other places. And I teach him about diplomacy and how diplomatic communities interact with each other and different missions. So it's a very interesting classroom in that most of the times he's actually seeing this happen. So he gets his obviously his literacy and numeracy skills. He's studying Portuguese. He has a specific Portuguese teacher. He has a piano instructor, and these are people with skills that contribute their time for free because they support what we're doing. So there is no money, and money is just generated on a computer somewhere, right? So I don't know if you've seen the debt clock. I showed my son that a few months ago. The real-time live US debt clock. It just keeps going up and up and up. So my question would be, if the Commonwealth of Australia can make stickers, then we can too. But we have the land and resources to back it because they said it, not us. And so we're saying, well, we got it all. We know everything about that. We don't have to convince anyone of that, but let's do it to empower every man and woman and child on our territory. And I hope that's a message that you're going to take home with you, is that if you look after everyone, chances are someone's going to look after him, my son, that is, if he's in trouble in the future or whatnot, they'll, hey, yeah, no worries, come on, we'll help you out. So if you do that, then you become you're adding value to the community, but people might treat you as that as well as valuable.
And you've been engaging with people at all levels for so long. So in '99, you participated in the Ship for World Youth, and you were named the NAIDOC Youth of the Year. You participated in the Canberra Press Gallery, and you've had associations with embassies around the world for a very long time. You've been the first to do so many of the things that you do. At what point in your life did you realize that this is for me, I have the power to do it? For example, being the first to interview Julian Assange, that in itself represented quite a novel approach to something that other people weren't embracing or may have been fearful of doing. So at what point in your life did you start realizing you can create value, take ownership of it and make it happen?
I think just to be honest, brother, just the simplicity of just being a man and leaving the ego to one side. You know what I mean? There's a positive ego and energy that comes with that as well. You can use it to to have your own little character or accent or flavour to your business. And there's different people who do things quietly, and some people are a bit more paparazzi and glitterati. You know what I mean? But I think just coming back to that simplicity and really looking at the world at supply and demand. And when I realised that I couldn't hold or use an Australian identification, then the entrepreneurial thing is, well, what does Australia need? It keeps talking about treaties, that they have a treaty with, and John Howard said a nation can't treaty with itself. Why don't we offer the treaty? Done. Let's do it. So this is where we are, 7 years, whatever it is, down the track. And I can say this now, that there are things happening that aren't spoken of that are very exciting. And it's having that faith and trust in the creator, for me, that has made it solid every day. So we don't worry about that stuff. Like when you believe in, like, the creator is going to feed you and protect you and all that kind of stuff, then you don't have to worry about that. And that's that spiritual aspect to it that is really cool, because we are spiritual beings, and first and foremost, and we are created in that image. So let's go back to that, but do business in a way that is going to help everyone. So that's the short answer to it.
Rory's got a question that goes back to something that Emily asked about platforms. How do we best connect with the Yidindji nation moving forward and stay across this continent?
I can type something in here. Yidindji.org. That's the official website. I'm happy for you, Graham, to pass on the mobile number that you have, if anyone wishes to contact directly. And if you're coming up this way, we'd certainly want you to visit the office and have a cup of tea and have a good yarn. And who knows, we might be able to help you with your endeavour, your ideas, and
That idea of a cup of tea is a beautiful segue to introducing where we might talk about this some more. Next week on Tuesday, 10 o'clock, led by Peter, as Rowena is travelling the state, that we have community coffee where we can further have conversations about this. And on Thursday, we'll speak with Penny Wolf from Wolf Coffee Roasters in a completely different topic altogether. But Murrumu, thank you very much for your time today. It's very much appreciated. And as per some of the comments in the chat, totally intriguing.
More than happy to help. And like I said, if people want to contact directly, or if they found this interesting, Graham, as a good friend of mine, that I can do this quite regularly whenever you want me to, and at no cost to your university.
I love your work. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. We really do appreciate that you invest your time in sharing that with us as well. It's so very appreciated.
Thank you all, and God bless. Yes.
Thanks, Murrumu.